Tim, I guess one of the issues to the brokering community is how does one comply? What sort of tools might be or are available to brokers to ensure that if they come across suspicious activity, and depending on what those regimes look like going forward, but what sort of tools might be available to these people?
Well, there are many tools available. I think you have to go back to the core of what Liz was just talking to us about, and that is the obligation on people, on businesses in this space, is to first of all know who your customers are, be able to identify them adequately and record that identification, but also to ensure that you're not doing business with someone who is prescribed as a terrorist or a suspected terrorist, or for that matter doing business with countries which are not that have economic or trade sanctions in place, and therefore you're not permitted to do business with those. So there are a number of tools, including some simple web-based tools that enable you to do testing to determine whether the person you're doing business with is someone you should or should not actually be doing business under this new law.
Whether it's in the initial rollout of the Act timeline or whether it's a progressive point, is that there are also issues then regarding who you employ, to ensure that you're not employing somebody who might be linked to an organisation who's going to utilise a lending service via a broker's practice to try and, I guess, manipulate the system as well. So there could be, a due diligence process for employees as well.
That's correct. We tend to refer to that as KYE, which is KYC, which Liz was talking about before, is the know your customer, and there's a general sort of presence that you must know who your employees are too, so that you're not exposed to potential for money laundering inside your organisation, that you don't have people inside your business who are facilitating the opening of new accounts or the processing of transactions which would breach the law. In those circumstances, people tend to do some reputational analysis. It's not dissimilar to the sort of due diligence you would do when you hire someone. Who are their references? What is their history? Are they telling the truth? And again, ensuring that the person you've hired isn't a person on one of the international terrorist or suspected terrorist lists.
Liz, back to you again. What do you think are the critical elements of a good AML program? Is there some sort of basis we can put around that?
Well, the elements of AML CTF programs are set out in the rules that AUSTRAC has made. Chapters 4, 8 and 9 are the relevant rules. The purpose of your AML program is to identify, mitigate and manage the risk that your provision of services might involve or facilitate, whether inadvertently or otherwise, money laundering or terrorism financing. An AML program must have a Part A and a Part B. Part A are the general requirements about systems and controls to identify, mitigate and manage your risk. Part B, is about customer identification procedures. Under your Part A program, you must consider your customer types, the types of services you provide, the methods by which you deliver them, and any foreign jurisdictions with which you're dealing when you're looking at your risk. Your program involves assessing your risk and putting in place appropriate systems and controls. Part A also needs to include some specific things, like some of the things that Tim was just talking about. You must have a risk awareness training program for your employees. You must have an employee due diligence program, and you must have provision for independent review of your AML program. And those are the sorts of things that are set out in chapters 8 and 9 of the rules. I'd also suggest that if you're not going to be fully compliant by the 12th of December this year, your AML program ought to include your plan for achieving compliance, so that AUSTRAC can see that what the steps are that you're taking to make sure that you achieve compliance within a reasonable time. Part B has to set out customer identification procedures, and Chapter 4 of the rules has some quite detailed requirements relating to those procedures. I'd suggest that anyone who's a reporting entity goes to our website and has a look at our risk management and AML CTF programs guidance note, which is quite detailed as to the criteria that you should be looking at.